The diner was the kind of place that seemed stuck in time. Old photographs of war heroes, faded menus, and a jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked in years. On a gray Tuesday morning, only a few customers sat scattered in the booths, sipping coffee as the smell of bacon and hash browns filled the air. At the far end of the counter sat Walt Harris, an 81-year-old Korean War veteran. His hands were frail now, his back hunched with the weight of years, but his eyes still carried that steady steel from days long gone. Walt came here every morning, not just for breakfast, but because this diner was the closest thing he had left to family. His wife had passed 6 winters ago, his daughter lived 3 states away, and most of his old war buddies had gone before him. The waitresses knew his order by heart: black coffee, scrambled eggs, and a single slice of toast. They called him Mr. Walt, with a warmth that made him feel seen in a world that had started to forget him. That morning, though, something shifted. A man barged through the diner door with the kind of swagger that demanded attention. He was young, maybe late 20s, with a shaved head, tattoos crawling up his neck, and a smirk that didn't belong in a quiet, small-town diner. His name was Kyle, though no one there cared enough to know it. Trouble followed him like a shadow. He stomped toward the counter, pushing past an old woman in the aisle, nearly knocking her coffee from her hands. "Watch it," she gasped. Kyle just laughed. Walt, who had been quietly stirring his coffee, looked up. His voice was gravelly but firm. "Hey, son, that's no way to treat a lady." The diner went silent. You could have heard a fork drop. Kyle turned, narrowing his eyes at the old man. "What did you say, Grandpa?" Walt didn't flinch. He'd stared down worse men in darker places. "I said, show some respect." The thug sneered. "Respect? Don't tell me about respect. You're just an old fossil sitting here wasting space." The waitress tried to intervene, her hands trembling. "Sir, please, just sit down." But before she could finish, Kyle marched up to Walt, standing over him. Walt stayed seated, calm, as though the years had stripped away any fear. "Maybe you didn't hear me," Kyle growled. Then, in one sudden motion, he slapped the old man across the face. The crack echoed through the diner. Gasps filled the room. Walt's head snapped to the side, his glasses sliding down his nose. For a moment, silence swallowed everything. But then, the door opened, and in walked 3 men, massive, leather vests patched with a name that made the thug's smirk fade. Across their backs, in bold stitching, Hell's Angels. Leading them was a man with a thick beard, scars lining his arms, and eyes that carried both fire and loyalty. His name was Jack, and Jack was Walt's only son. The diner seemed to freeze in time. Jack looked at his father, still sitting at the counter with a red mark on his cheek, and then at Kyle, who suddenly looked much smaller than he had a moment ago. "Who?" Jack said in a low, steady voice. "Just put their hands on my dad." Kyle tried to laugh it off. I don't know what you're talking about, man." The old guy was mouthing off. He needed to learn, but he didn't get to finish. Jack stepped closer, towering over him. His brothers flanked him, silent but deadly in their presence. The air was heavy, like a storm about to break. "You don't touch him," Jack growled. "Not my father. Not ever." Kyle's bravado cracked. He stuttered, his voice shaking. "I didn't know he was your." Jack's fist slammed down on the counter, rattling dishes. "Doesn't matter if he's mine. He's a man, a veteran. He's earned more respect than you'll ever understand." The thug backed away, but Jack grabbed him by the collar before he could run. He leaned in close, his voice sharp as a blade. "You're gonna apologize. Right now. Loud enough that everyone in here hears it." Kyle swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the room at the staring faces. I'm sorry, sir," he muttered. "Louder," Jack barked. "I'm sorry," Kyle shouted, his voice breaking. Jack let him go, shoving him toward the door. "Now get out before we escort you out." Kyle didn't need telling twice. He stumbled out of the diner, the door slamming behind him, his tough guy act shattered. Silence lingered for a long moment. Then the waitresses began moving again, relief spreading through the room. One of them hurried to Walt, wiping the coffee that had spilled on the counter. Walt touched his cheek, then looked at his son. "You didn't have to do all that," he said softly. Jack's hard expression melted as he turned to him. "Yes, I did, Dad. I wasn't there for a lot of years. I know I wasn't the son you wanted me to be. But I'll be damned if I let anyone lay a hand on you." The old man's eyes grew wet, though he tried to hide it. Walt had always worried about Jack's choices, about the violent world he lived in with the angels. But in that moment, sitting in that diner, he saw not an outlaw, but a son protecting his father with everything he had. Jack pulled out a chair and sat beside him, nodding to the waitress. "Coffee, black, and bring my dad whatever he wants." "On me." The diner slowly returned to life, but something hung in the air, an unspoken reminder that kindness and loyalty come in many forms, sometimes wrapped in leather and ink. Walt reached over, his hand trembling, and gripped his son's arm. "I'm proud of you, Jack," he whispered. And for the first time in a long time, Jack smiled. That morning, the diner wasn't just a place for breakfast. It became a place where an old man realized his son's love ran deeper than the mistakes of the past, where strangers witnessed a bond unbreakable by time or circumstance, and where a thug learned that disrespect comes with consequences. And maybe, just maybe, everyone there walked out carrying a little more respect, for the old, for the brave, and for the unseen battles people fight every day. If this story touched your heart, remember, acts of kindness, loyalty, and courage matter more than we realize. And if you'd like to hear more stories that restore your faith in humanity, make sure to subscribe.